So today on Online for Authors, I'm chatting with Scott Eveloff, author of Do Not Resuscitate. Welcome, Scott.
Thank you very much for having me.
I'm super excited. The book was fantastic. Before we really dive in, though, can you give readers a quick overview of what they're going to find when they open up the cover of Do Not Resuscitate?
The pitch is really something like Ghost meets Invasion of the Body Snatchers, if you want a sort of elevator pitch. It's a medical mystery, but unique from a lot of other medical mysteries and medical thrillers. It has a very strong supernatural component. So it's a medical supernatural thriller.
Right. What made you decide, hey, I'm going to write a medical thriller and I'm going to throw in a supernatural element? Where did that come from?
In terms of the medical thriller mystery part, I'm a physician. I've been a physician for 30 years, and part of that time I spent in the intensive care unit where, unfortunately, I saw the intersection of life and death on a daily basis. I participated in multiple resuscitations and seeing what happens to people during the resuscitation, and unfortunately, after the resuscitation, that opens up a fertile ground for all sorts of stuff to happen. So that's point one. Point two is it's well known that there's so many patients who suffer from medical errors out there. I mean, daily, there are thousands of people who get harmed or die of medical errors. I've never been on the receiving end of that, either as a provider or a consumer, but I started imagining what would happen if such medical errors were, or if such medical harm in the hospital can be disguised as a medical error. So I put that together with all the resuscitation and death. And then finally, the supernatural aspect. I don't know if you've ever been in a hospital after hours. Hospitals are incredibly creepy and spooky after hours. You walk down these long deserted hallways. You hear people moan from behind closed doors. Then there's the ICU. So I put in the sort of spooky supernatural setting of a hospital, the resuscitation, my medical experience, and the medical error stuff. And that's what allowed me to come up with the story.
And bam, there we have kind of the general background behind what's going on here. So we quickly meet Harry. He's an intern. He appears to be in the middle of terrible medical crises. And then all of a sudden people start blaming him as though he were the culprit somehow, or like he's not good enough. He's making these errors, right?
Exactly.
But he starts to believe that maybe it's kind of like an angel of mercy kind of thing happening. And so he has his own little thing that he's doing. He feels like he's trying to save his own skin, etc.
Exactly.
Right. And then in the middle of all of that, he begins seeing and hearing ghosts.
Or things that he thinks are probably not real. Is he having a psychotic break from the stress? Exactly. Are these real ghosts? And so, yes, he starts seeing things, visions, people that he doesn't understand and don't fit into his human angel of death theory.
Right. And so he starts thinking that maybe he's going nuts. And we find out that he has a lot of stress. He has stress from home because he had something bad happen in his own home life. And then he has stress from being an intern, which is, long hours and away from home for long periods of time. And then he is also at this time, I think he was in the emergency room or the ICU in the beginning. ICU in the beginning. And so, as you said, you do see a lot of, by the time people make it to the ICU, there's a really good chance they're not going to come out of an ICU without some major issues. And so we've got, that whole right thing. And so he has reason for stress. So he thinks maybe he's losing his mind. And on the other hand, he's seeing things that make him wonder if there perhaps could be something else going on. So my question has to be, do you believe in ghosts?
First of all, Harry is patterned after me.
Okay.
He's an insecure, bumbling intern, and that was me to a T when I first started my training. Do I believe in ghosts? Yes, I absolutely believe, at least that there's something beyond that which we can see.
Okay.
be it ghosts, spirits, lingering souls, whatever. Yeah, I think there is something out there. I do.
Yeah. Well, so do I. I have experienced certain things that sometimes make me like, it just makes you question, not anything demonic like some of what he was experiencing, but definitely presences or things that just don't quite have a human explanation.
Not only do I agree with you, but just from a purely logical point of view, it just doesn't make sense to me that we're stuck here on Earth for 70, 80 years, and that's it.
That just goes away, right?
Yeah, it just doesn't make sense. So whether you're more spiritual, whether you're more logical, I do think that an afterlife, something afterwards, does exist.
All right. So I'm curious, you having been a physician for, you said 30 plus years, right?
Right.
Okay. Having been the physician for this long, did you have to do much research in order to write this book? Or was this all things that you actually knew and could just move forward with?
No, it was all after 30 years, you just kind of accumulate knowledge. To be honest, I wanted something a little therapeutic to take me away from the stresses of my job and my son, who several of the characters are patterned after, was also quite ill. So it served as therapy. I was able to create a world that I had control over, as opposed to the real world, which control was a little more difficult.
Absolutely. I understand that. I'm sorry to hear about your son. I had just, my husband passed away in January. He had glioblastoma. And so we had 2.5 years of the whole caregiving and dealing. Yeah. And so I know that stress and the need to kind of like jump out of that and find something else. It's surprising to me, though, that you stuck with a medical scenario, because I would think that if you were writing to get rid of stress, you'd, I don't know, write like a romance or a fantasy or something totally outside.
Well, any instruction on writing, the first thing they say is write what you know.
What you know, absolutely.
And I knew it. Plus, again, it is such fertile ground for all sorts of mysteries, thrillers, etc. The whole medical aspect, the in-hospital aspect, it just almost wrote itself, to be very honest.
Yeah. So I kind of alluded to the fact that we have some demonic type ghosts. We also have some that are not. You know, we have helper ghosts, we have demonic kind of spirits, ghosts, whatever we're going to call them. But they're, you know, we have these entities, right? And I loved the play in that, and how Harry had to kind of figure out like who to trust. And, you know, does he get it all? Does he always get it right? You know, that kind of thing. And it was really it was a very intense ride.
I appreciate that. That's what I wanted to bring across. And I wanted to make actually everything that happened in the hospital medical wise can actually happen, which should be the scariest part of it all. All the quote unquote medical errors that were actually not medical errors, those are founded in medical science. So, you know, I would say that whenever you're in a hospital and after you've read my book, watch your back, because things can happen that you don't know about, whether intentional or unintentional. And like I said, it's all encapsulated factually in my book.
Right. Well, you know, it's interesting. It's one of the things, whenever my husband had to be hospitalized, I stayed with him day and night.
Good move.
I was with him every moment, because as a non-medical person, I caught several errors as they would go to give him medicine that he wasn't supposed to have. That's
exactly right.
As they would go to give him a dosage that was 4 times the amount that he's supposed to have. Those kinds of things where I'd say, whoa, what are you giving him? Oh, wait, you can't give him that. He just had brain surgery and is having seizures. He can't have that. Oh.
And I'll go one step further. I think everybody should have someone in their family who has medical knowledge to make that even more accurate.
Well, he has a daughter who's a nurse practitioner. And whenever I had a question, I would run it by her. I would call her and just say, hey, look, they're suggesting such and so. Does this make sense to you? You know, they're ignoring this number that looks bad to me. What do you think of it? You know, those kinds of things, because I now know way more about blood work than the average individual because I had to pay attention to it. But especially in the beginning, it was like, I don't even know what I'm looking at.
I think there's a lot of patients out there who know more about medicine than a lot of medical students because they're schooled in the school of hard knocks or
Right.
in reality. Right. So I don't doubt that you know more than maybe a lot of first-year residents do about medicine. It's a brutal learning experience, but you need to do it because, I mean, that supports my book. Medical errors are just horrendously common. And
the other thing that would often happen is someone would come in to do something and I would ask why, and they would say, this is protocol. And my stat answer became, we do not protocol my husband.
You know, that's one of my pet peeves. I got to tell you, so much of medicine these days is either protocol or quote unquote algorithm. Yeah. And it just takes thought out of it. It takes the individual out of it.
Exactly.
I've become a real passionate advocate for both the disabled because of my son and for patient rights in general. I think someone needs to stand up for them because we're being run roughshod over by algorithms and protocols.
Right.
And it takes the thought out of it. And maybe I'm a dinosaur, but
once again, the number of times that I would say, okay, so this is protocol, but we know this, and this about my husband. Do you still want to do that?
My bet is he said yes, because
they tried to say yes, and then they'd say, so you're telling me that you deny this treatment? And I said, until I speak to a specialist, I most certainly do.
It is tough to shake the medical establishment from their protocols and algorithms. It really, because they're built into the medical records. So,
right.
You know, now you're violating the medical records.
Right. And I was more than willing to. I was probably the person that they hated to see the most.
Well,
they'd walk in the room and think, oh, there she is.
You know, there are obviously civil ways to direct your loved one's care, and I'm sure you did that. You don't have to yell and scream. But
I was adamant in terms of you are not doing that, and you could just see that. I actually had two different people at two different times say to me, "Are you medical?" And I would say, "No, I'm his wife."
Well, I have stories that'll top you, which I'm not going to get into now, but most people do who have been in a hospital.
Absolutely.
It's a foreign country, all hospitals. It's a, foreign soil, and you've got to be on the lookout, never mind for the ghosts that are undoubtedly lingering in the hallways all around you.
So getting back to your story just a little bit, you talked a little bit about computer systems and healthcare and this real reliance and how easy it is for people to just change something in the system. How do you actually is this something that is a concern to you in real life, or was this something that you took a little further and just put it in?
2 points. First, in terms of actually changing things, I took a little bit of literary liberty about that. But the absolute reliance on what a doctor or a nurse practitioner sees on the screen in front of them, that's actually more real. So, if there's all sorts of mistakes, you can accidentally type in the wrong number. Well, that wrong number can still be regarded as written in stone by whoever is there. And that was one point I tried to get across is we become very reliant on what the computer tells us as opposed to what your gut feeling and the patient tells you. Yeah. But in terms of actually purposefully typing in the wrong numbers and wrong medications, I mean, it can be done, but not
as easy
the way that I portray it.
Okay. All right. Well, that makes me breathe a little easier. Of the characters that you created, is there one in particular that just really stands out to you?
Actually, there are two elderly characters, and I like them because I think they're also underrepresented, underappreciated, and overly ignored. And so if I had, maybe it's because I'm becoming older and older, but I like the two older protagonists who are not given any sort of recognition at all, and yet they both, without giving something away, rise to the occasion when it's needed.
Absolutely. I enjoyed those characters as well. And one in particular, I kept thinking, what is it about this one? What is it about this one? There's more to his story. There's more to his story. And then you find out toward the end that there's more to his story, which was really wonderful to find out. How long did it take you from the idea to actually getting it published?
Well, I would say probably 10 or 15 years.
Okay.
And like almost every published author, that included countless rejections, countless revisions, more rejections, going to a lot of literary conferences, pitching to agents, pitching to editors, taking in what they said, revising it. So, from the generation of it to the final product, 10 or 15 years.
Yeah, it's a long journey, guys. When you write a book, it isn't that you say, "Oh, I think I'm going to write a book," and sit down and 3 days later put one out. That isn't how it works. It's a long process.
You better want to just enjoy writing or enjoy the story you're telling, and then hopefully it'll get published as well. But if it becomes a chore, it's going to be a chore for years, I'm afraid.
I agree. So, Scott, are you more of a plotter where you kind of have a good outline, or are you more of a pantser where you just see where the story's going?
I'm a pantser. I'm definitely a pantser. And what I'll do is I'll write something and then I'll sit out on my deck with my little shot glass of whiskey and just think about things. And I'll think, darn, I didn't explain such and such. So then I'll go back. But I like pantsing. I like George sort of surprising myself, as it were. So no, I don't plot. That's too much work for me. I want writing to be enjoyable, so I'm a pantser.
So it's interesting. I'm a pantser as well, and I've tried plotting, and I tried plotting because I was kind of under the impression I was doing it wrong. That you read so many of these craft books, and they've got these 600 million ways that you can plot a book. And you start to feel like, well, maybe I'm doing it wrong. Maybe I'm making this harder on myself. So I've tried a couple of different versions of plotting, and all of those manuscripts are now in the trash can because I do not write that way. It's like my characters just say, "No, I'm sorry, we are not participating in this event. You let us know when you're done, and then we'll tell you the story."
and that goes back to the having fun when you're writing. Plotting, that's like homework. You don't want to do homework. You just want to write a story and revise it, and then hopefully it'll get published. And that's why I'm a pantser, not a plotter.
I absolutely, I agree with you 100%. But of course, that's from one pantser to another.
I know.
Are you a daily writer? Do you get up every morning and write, or write every evening, or do you kind of just write when it suits you?
I write when it suits me. Number one, my schedule up until now hasn't permitted a very rigorous, a detailed schedule. But no, I write, it's weird. I like writing, but the urge will come over me at a certain time, and then I'll write, and then I may not write for days. It's just, it's very strange.
So, Scott, I think you and I might have the same kind of author bug. I call myself a binge writer, where I will sit down and sometimes write, like if I've got the time, I could write for hours. And then who knows when I'll write again. I mean, because I don't have anything to say yet. I'm thinking about things. I often am turning things over in my brain, but all of a sudden it'll be like, ooh, I know what I want to write. And then I can write. And then if someone's forcing me to write, once again, I think it feels like homework. And it's like, I'm not in the mood.
I think we're writing twins, because that's exactly how I feel. Maybe I'll spend days thinking about things, but in terms of the actual writing, I need to have the urge or the urge to sit down and actually write.
Yeah. I think for me, it's like, as I'm thinking, I'm maybe even playing out scenarios and trying things out, and and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, it's starting to gel. And maybe I'll have a conversation that will hit me, or a scene or something. And it's like, oh, I can write that. And once I start writing it, I might write for a while, because now it's just really going. And then I come to the end of thought. Okay, I'm done.
I'm with you. I agree 100%. And by the way, nothing is as exciting as sitting there thinking about things and coming up with a great twist that, oh my God, which
now
is
I know what I'm going to
occurred to me a
do.
couple times.
I'm curious if this has happened to you. As a pantser, it's happened to me where I put something in and it's minor, maybe someone had a dream or something, and I don't know why I wrote it. And then chapters later, I can now use that thing has become the vehicle for this great twist. And I didn't know it when I wrote it.
You're right. Yes, that has happened to me.
Yeah. Isn't that
Absolutely.
an awesome experience?
It is. It's fantastic. It really is. Of course, it's also nice when the reader agrees that it's a good twist, but
I have to agree. Yeah.
So hopefully people who read my book will agree with it. But yeah, when it comes to you in that epiphany, it's a great feeling.
Absolutely. As people walk away, so they've read the book, they've enjoyed it because they're going to enjoy this book. Is there anything else that you want them to get from it?
As a matter of fact, yes. And I'm very glad you asked that question. First, I wanted just to write an entertaining book that, would make the supernatural or the medical disasters seem like they could really happen. But my messages underlying it are that of dignity for the disabled, because as you've read, there are certain disabled characters in there who deserve credit, who don't get credit, who do get credit. So dignity for the disabled and patient rights and actually elderly rights are sort of the underlying messages that I want people to take away. It's not a lecture. I'm not lecturing people, but if I had to answer your question, I would like those underlying concerns to come across out of my book, as well as just a good story.
Absolutely. And they do. So you did a good job with that. I hope that this was not your last book.
Actually, I've had another book accepted for publication with a different publisher. It's coming out May 19th next year.
Fantastic. Are you allowed to talk about it at this point?
I don't see why not. It's
super. Tell us a little bit about what's coming up.
Well, it's a historical fiction and supernatural fiction book. I don't know if you've heard about the character, the Golem. It's a mythological creature out of Jewish mythology. Okay. And it's supposed to arise when the Jewish people are in harm's way. Okay. And so I'm also an avid history buff. So I put my Golem in the Holocaust in World War II, which has really never been done. And that's the book. It's called The Golem's Holocaust. It's by History of Books, and it's going to be coming out in May.
Oh, that is super exciting. I absolutely love it. I love historical fiction, and I really like a good historical fiction that has some kind of a twist. Historical fiction can sometimes get overdone, where you've seen the same, topic over and over and over. And so whenever I see something that's a little different, that has a different take on it, I absolutely love that. So it sounds like a wonderful idea.
I also like the mysteries of history, and my book, this book, comes up with answers to several mysteries that have never quite been solved regarding World War II. So,
that sounds fabulous. That sounds fabulous. And it's called, tell me the title again.
The Golem's Holocaust.
And that will be out, you said, in March?
May.
In May of 2026. So guys, mark that somewhere because you're going to want this one. I feel confident that if it's as good as the first book that you've written, that it's going to be something that we definitely want to see. So, hey, guys, if you want to continue this conversation, head on over to Novels and Latte Book Club on Facebook. There you're going to have an opportunity to win a digital copy of Do Not Resuscitate. What you have to do is tell me something you liked or learned from this conversation, and you will be in the drawing. Scott, if someone wanted to get in touch with you, talk with you a little bit about your writing, your work, how do they do that? What's the best way to reach you?
Which first I would love. I'm very accessible. My website is scotteveloff.com. Very simple because technologically I'm a very simple guy. And email me is scotteveloff@gmail.com. I don't mind getting emails. So either way, I would. And if you don't like the book, I'd like to hear about it. If you did like the book, I'd really like to hear about it. Or if you have questions or whatever, I'm very accessible.
Fantastic. And guys, I will have all that in the show notes so that you'll be able to reach right out to Scott. Definitely grab the book, definitely review it, because we all need those reviews on Amazon. It's very important as an author. And Scott, I want to thank you so much for being with me today. This has been wonderful.
I want to thank you. This has been an extremely enjoyable discussion, and I hope everybody else feels the same way.
I'm sure they will. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Harry. Take care.
Thank you for listening to Online for Authors, where I, Terry M. Brown, author of character-driven fiction and host of the podcast, introduce readers to characters they'd love to invite to lunch. Tune in next Tuesday for another podcast episode.